Hey guys, tonight we sail into the storm-whipped world of the Vikings, those Norse seafarers whose names still echo like thunder across Europe. Picture yourself on a jagged Scandinavian fjord, the air sharp with salt and pine, waves gnashing at the rocks below. A longship's dragon-headed prow slices through the mist, its oars thumping like a war drum. You're bundled in furs, squinting at the horizon, wondering if you'll ever see home again, or if you'll survive the journey. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this, not without a Viking's grit. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand on that rocky shore, sometime around the late 8th century, and the question burns, why did the Vikings even leave this stark, beautiful land? Scandinavia's no paradise. Winters bite like wolves, and the soil's stingy, barely coughing up enough barley to feed a village. Historians point to overpopulation as a hard fact. Too many mouths, too little arable land. By 800 CE, Norse communities were swelling, and younger sons, denied inheritance under primogeniture, had to seek fortunes elsewhere. It's like being the runt of the litter. Either you fight for scraps or you bolt. So, you and your restless kin eye the sea, your only road to glory. But it's not just hunger for land. There's a quirkier spark, a cultural itch for fame. Norse sagas, those half-mythic tales scratched onto vellum, obsess over Kleos, glory that outlives you. A Viking's worth was measured in deeds, not gold, and raiding or exploring promised eternal bragging rights. Imagine your name chanted in a mead hall centuries later. That's the dream. You clutch your axe, not just for survival, but to carve your story into the world's memory. Yet historians still argue whether it was desperation or ambition that drove you first. Some say climate shifts made farming tougher, pushing you to raid. Others insist it was pure opportunism, spotting weak monasteries across the water. Either way, you're not just a farmer anymore. You're a Viking, and the sea's your stage. The wind howls, and your longship creaks, ready to carry you to infamy. You don't just leap into this life blindly. Your people have been tinkering with ships for generations, and by now, they're engineering marvels. Clinker-built, with overlapping planks, these boats flex like living things, riding waves that would snap lesser hulls. You marvel at the keel, a spine that keeps you stable, and the shallow draft, letting you slip up rivers like a thief. It's tech that screams, "We're coming for you," and Europe's not ready. There's a funny side to this too. Ever hear of Viking parking tickets? Okay, not really, but some Norse runes, scratched on stones, brag about who sailed where, like graffiti tags for the 9th century. You chuckle, imagining a Viking carving, "Bjorn was here," on a looted abbey's wall. It's cocky, but that's the spirit. You're not just surviving, you're shouting your existence to the gods. As you shove off, the shore fades, and the open sea yawns. You're not sure what's out there, riches, death, or both, but you feel the pull. This isn't just a trip. It's the start of a wave that'll crash over Europe, reshaping it for centuries. Your heart thumps like those oars. Ready or not, you're in it now. You're aboard a Viking longship now, the deck pitching beneath your boots, salt spray stinging your face as the sail cracks like a whip. The dragon-headed prow snarls ahead, slicing waves like a hot knife through wax. You grip an oar, knuckles pale, as your crew's rowing chant, half growl, half prayer, keeps time. This isn't just a boat, it's a weapon, a masterpiece. The reason your Norse kin made Europe's coasts their personal punching bag. You're raiding, and the world's about to tremble. Longships are the Viking edge, a hard historical fact. By the 790s, your people nailed a design that's brutally effective. Sleek, light, fast, with a flexible clinker-built hull of overlapping planks. You hit 15 knots in a strong breeze, outpacing any clumsy merchant tub. The symmetrical bow lets you reverse without turning, perfect for quick getaways. Best part? A shallow draft, barely a meter, lets you slink up rivers, hitting inland villages like a ghost. In 793 CE, Lindisfarne's monks saw your sail and thought the apocalypse had docked. They weren't far off. Here's a quirky bit. Some longships sported beard sails, extra strips of dyed cloth, red or striped, flapping like a warrior's whiskers to spook foes. You chuckle, picturing a Frankish peasant bolting at the sight of your boat's facial hair. It's ridiculous, but it works. Half the battle's psychological, and your longship screams terror before you even draw an axe. Historians still argue whether shipbuilding sparked the Viking Age or just enabled it. Some say overpopulation forced you to sea, and ships were the tool. Others reckon the tech itself, those sleek hulls, tempted you to raid. Either way, you're here, rowing toward chaos. Your longship's not just transport, it's a statement. Europe's soft underbelly is wide open. You marvel at the craftsmanship. The oak keels hewn from a single tree, strong yet light, flexing with the waves. Sails, woven from wool and sealed with horse fat, catch every gust. You're no engineer, but you feel the genius in every creak. This ship's alive, a predator, and you're its claws. A joke floats up. Why'd the Viking ship never get lost? Because the dragon head always sniffed out loot. You snort, but the crew's too focused to laugh. Raiding's not random. You target monasteries first, fat with gold, weakly guarded. Lindisfarne's sack in 7-3 kicks it off, a shockwave that ripples through chronicles. Monks call you pagans, wolves, but you don't care. You're not here for their gods. You're here for their silver. Speed's your ally. Hit, grab, vanish. By the time local lords muster, you're halfway to the horizon, longship loaded with chalices and coins. There's another gag. Your crew bets on who'll puke first in rough seas. You're holding strong, but that guy Bjorn's looking green. It's a fleeting laugh. Focus returns as land looms. The longship's real power isn't just speed, it's reach. You strike England, Ireland, Francia, even deep into Russia's rivers. No coasts safe. You're not just raiders. You're a force, rewriting Europe's map with every voyage. As the shore nears, your heart pounds. The longships carried you this far, a marvel of wood and will. You're not just sailing history, you're making it. The raid's about to begin, and your name's on the line. You're no longer just a raider slicing through waves. Now you're a trader, your longship groaning under the weight of amber, furs, and silver. The sea's still your road, but the horizon's shifted. Ports, not monasteries, are your target. You dock at a bustling market, the air thick with smoke and shouts, where Norse merchants like you weave Europe's economic web. Your raids shook the world, but it's your trade that's reshaping it, coin by coin, deal by deal. By the 9th century, Vikings were trade titans, a fact carved into history's ledger. You're not just looting, you're linking east and west. From Scandinavia, you haul furs and walrus ivory to markets like Hedeby, a Danish hub where goods flow like rivers. You sail east to Byzantium, swapping pelts for silk and spices, or south to Frankish towns, trading slaves, grim but true, for wine and weapons. Your silver, minted in Arabic dirhams, jingles in pouches from Baghdad to Dublin. This isn't small time. You're building a commercial empire. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Viking traders used hack silver, chopped up jewelry weighed for value, not beauty. You grin, imagining a merchant slicing a looted cross to pay for mead. It's practical, but it's also flexing. Your wealth's so vast, you hack it like firewood. Historians still argue whether trade or raids drove your influence more. Some say commerce stabilized your presence, turning enemies into partners. Others insist looting funded the ships that made trade possible. Either way, you're at the heart of it, haggling in a market where Norse, Saxon, and Slav tongues tangle. Your longship's not just a war machine now. It's a cargo hauler stuffed with goods that bind distant lands. You wander Hedeba's stalls, boots squelching in mud, eyeing a Frankish sword gleaming next to Baltic amber beads. The Viking trade network's a beast, stretching from Greenland to the Caspian Sea. You're not just swapping stuff, you're spreading ideas, tech, even fashion. Those fancy belt buckles Saxons suddenly love, Norse design. The stirrups Franks now use, picked up from your Eastern roots. You're a cultural middleman, and it's paying off. A joke bubbles up. Why'd the Viking trader sail so far? To get away from his wife's cooking. You smirk, but the truth's less funny. Trade's risky. Storms, pirates, or a bad deal can sink you. Yet the rewards are huge. You finger a coin stamped with a caliph's name, earned from selling Irish captives. It's dark, but slavery's a cog in this machine, fueling your wealth. You don't linger on it. You're here to barter. Your impact's not just in goods. You're forging towns, Dublin, York, Novgorod, born from trade posts that grow into powerhouses. These aren't just markets. They're melting pots where Norse and local ways blend. You hear a Saxon merchant curse in Norse, and you laugh. Your language is creeping in, like seaweed on a hull. Trade's not glamorous like raiding, but it's glue, binding your influence to Europe's bones. As you seal a deal for furs, a Byzantine trader offers you a glass of something strong. You toast, the drink burning your throat, and realize this is bigger than you. Your raids open the door, but trade's building the house. Europe's changing, and your hands on the tiller. You're standing in a muddy English village, the air heavy with wood smoke and the tang of livestock, as a Norse chieftain carves a runestone under an oak. Locals gawk, half curious, half scared, as his hammer taps out a tale of Thor and glory. You're not just a trader or raider now. You're a bearer of Viking culture, your traditions seeping into Europe's soil like rain. Your gods, your rituals, your way of life, they're clashing with local ways, and the sparks are reshaping the continent. By the 9th century, Norse culture was a cultural juggernaut, a fact etched in archaeological finds. You carry Thor's hammer pendant, not a cross, and your tales of Odin's ravens spook Christian villagers. In places like York or Dublin, your people don't just settle. They bring their pantheon. Locals start blending Norse myths with their own. A Saxon might swear by Thor during a storm. Your runestones, raised for dead kin, dot the landscape, shouting your beliefs in stark symbols. It's not conquest, it's osmosis. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Vikings tattooed their skin with ravens or wolves, shocking prim monks who called it pagan graffiti. You grin, flexing an imaginary inked arm, wondering if a monk ever secretly wanted one. It's bold, like your culture, marking Europe in ways swords never could. Historians still argue whether your influence was adoption or imposition. Did locals embrace Norse ways willingly, or did fear of your acts nudge them along? Either way, you're in a village feast now, mead flowing, a skald chanting of sea kings. The locals join in, clumsy with Norse words, but trying. Your sagas, oral epics of gods and heroes, captivate them, planting seeds of your worldview. Their kids will grow up half Norse in spirit. You notice other blends. Your shipbuilding tricks, those clinker hulls, show up in local boats. Your women's brooches, oval and gleaming, become fashion in Anglo-Saxon markets. Even your comb making, Vikings love neat hair, weirdly, spreads. Antler combs are now a hot commodity. You chuckle at the thought. Your grooming habits are conquering Europe. A joke slips out. Why'd the Viking bring a comb to battle? To slay with style. The skald rolls his eyes, but you're half serious. Christianity's pushing back, though. Priests preach against your heathen ways, yet you see their churches borrow Norse wood carving styles. It's a two-way street. You hear of Norse settlers in Normandy baptizing kids, but still sacrificing to Freyr for crops. This syncretism, your gods dancing with theirs, is your culture's sly victory. You're not erasing their world. You're weaving yours into it. At the feast, a local woman wears a Norse-style shawl, her accent tinged with your words. You realize your influence isn't just in things, it's in minds. Your myths, your art, your swagger, they're taking root. Europe's not just trading with you or fighting you, it's becoming you, bit by bit. As the fire dies, you feel the weight of it. Your culture's a tide, and it's still rising. You're trudging through a damp meadow in what'll one day be Normandy. Your boots sinking into the earth, the scent of salt and grass sharp in your nose. A Norse longhouse takes shape nearby, its timber frame rising like a giant's ribs against the sky. You're not raiding or trading now. You're settling, planting roots in foreign soil. Your people are carving out new homelands across Europe, from Ireland's green hills to Russia's endless rivers. And these colonies are stitching your influence into the continent's fabric. By the 9th century, Viking settlements were a historical cornerstone. You're part of a wave, thousands of Norse families claiming land in England's Danelaw, Ireland's Dublin, or Normandy's fertile plains. In 911 CE, the Frankish king grants your leader, Rollo, land to stop your raids. You smirk at the irony. Your chaos earns you a home. These aren't just camps, they're thriving towns. You build farms, smithies, even pagan shrines, transforming empty fields into Norse strongholds. Your longhouses, with their steep roofs and smoky hearths, dot the landscape like stubborn declarations. Here's a quirky fact. Some settlers brought pet cats whose descendants still roam places like York. You laugh, picturing a burly Viking cuddling a tabby on a longship. Those cats weren't just cute. They kept rats from devouring grain, making your colony sustainable. It's a small thing, but it shows your knack for survival. Historians still argue whether your settlements were invasions or integrations. Did you conquer by force, or did locals gradually accept your presence? Either way, you're in Normandy now, haggling with a Frankish farmer over land boundaries. He's wary, but speaks a few Norse words, picked up from your kin. Your settlements aren't just Norse, they're hybrids. You marry local women, blending bloodlines. Your kids grow up with one foot in each world, praying to Thor but learning Latin hymns. You walk the settlement, passing a blacksmith, hammering out a plowshare, not a sword. Your people adapt, raising crops suited to this soil: rye, barley, oats. You even borrow local tricks like stone walls for cattle pens. But you keep your Norse soul. Rune-carved stones mark your dead, and your skalds still sing of Odin at night. A joke floats up. Why'd the Vikings settle down? So he could raid the neighbor's pantry instead. You snort, but the truth's deeper. You're building something lasting. Your colonies reshape Europe. Dublin becomes a trade hub, funneling silver and slaves. York, under Norse rule, rivals Anglo-Saxon cities. In Russia, your kin found Kiev, a seed of Slavic empires. These aren't just homes, they're power bases, spreading your laws, your crafts, your swagger. You teach locals to build better ships. They teach you their weaving patterns. It's a slow dance, this blending, but it's working. As dusk falls, you sit by the longhouse fire, a local ale in hand. Your settlement's small, but it's a spark. Across Europe, your people are doing the same, digging in, mixing, enduring. You're not just passing through anymore. You're changing the map, one homestead at a time. You're crouched in a shield wall, the air thick with sweat and iron, as a Saxon warband looms across a misty field. Your Norse axe hums in your grip, its weight a promise of chaos. The battle horn wails, and your heart thumps like a drum. You're a Viking warrior now, part of a fearsome machine that's carving your people's name into Europe's bones. Your military might isn't just about winning fights. It's a force that's bending kingdoms and rewriting borders. By the 9th century, Viking warfare was a historical game changer. Your warbands, disciplined yet feral, hit like lightning. In 865 CE, the great heathen army, thousands of Norse fighters, storms England, capturing York and toppling Anglo-Saxon kings. Your tactics are brutal but brilliant. lightning raids, riverborne assaults, and winter camps that let you strike year-round. You don't just fight, you outsmart, using speed and surprise. Your shield wall, a bristling hedge of oak and iron, breaks enemies before they break you. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Vikings carried lucky raven feathers into battle, tucked into helmets for Odin's favor. You smirk, imagining a grizzled warrior fussing over his feather like it's a talisman. It's superstition, but it fuels the ferocity that makes your warbands legends. Historians still argue whether your military success came from superior tactics or sheer audacity. Were your victories due to longship mobility and hit-and-run precision? Or was it the terror you sowed, making enemies flee before a blade fell? Either way, you're in the thick of it now, shield-locked with your kins. The Saxon line charges, and you brace, shouting Thor's name. Your warbands know rabble. Every man knows his role, trained from youth to wield axe, spear, or sword with deadly grace. Your weapons are your pride. The Dane axe, with its broad blade, cleaves shields like kindling. Your chainmail, rare and costly, marks you as elite. Most foes wear leather, if that. A joke ripples through the ranks. Why'd the Viking polish his axe? So it shines when he sends you to Valhalla. You chuckle, but the clash is coming, and focus snaps back. Your gear's not just for show. It's tech, forged in Norse smithies, giving you an edge over clumsier foes. Your impact's not just in battles won. You reshape warfare itself. Locals copy your shield wall. Your berserker shock troops. Frankish lords build forts to counter your raids, changing their landscape. In England, your great army forces Alfred the Great to unify his kingdoms, a backhanded gift to history. You're not just fighting, you're forging nations through fear and steel. As the Saxons hit, your line holds, axes swinging in grim rhythm. You're not here for land or gold today, just survival and glory. Win or lose, your warrior ethos, that blend of courage and cunning, is seeping into Europe's marrow. Every clash spreads your legend, making Viking a word that echoes dread and awe. You're lounging in a smoky longhouse in York, the fire crackling as a local trader stumbles over a Norse word, skipper, while bartering for wool. You grin, catching the slip. Your language is sneaking into his, like a thief in the night. Across Europe, your Norse tongue isn't just spoken, it's weaving itself into local dialects, leaving words that'll outlast your ships and swords. You're not just a warrior or settler now. You're a wordsmith, reshaping how people talk. By the 10th century, Norse linguistic influence was a historical fact. In England's Danelaw, where your kin rule, words like law, sky, and knife seep into Old English. In Ireland, Your terms for ships, knar, longship, stick in Gaelic mouths. Even in Russia, Slavic tongues borrow rus, maybe from your word for rowers. You hear it in markets, on farms, in curses spat during brawls. Your language isn't just sound, it's a legacy carried on local lips long after you're gone. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Norse words were so catchy, they named days of the week. You smirk, knowing Thursday comes from Thor's Day. Your thunder god still flexing in modern calendars. It's a tiny win, but it feels like your culture's cheating time itself. Historians still argue whether your words spread through dominance or daily life. Did locals adopt them under Norse rule, or did trading and intermarriage do the trick? Either way, you're in York's market now, haggling with an Anglo-Saxon who calls his boat a skiff. Your word, not his. Your settlements, from Dublin to Novgorod, are linguistic hubs. Your traders, brides, and skalds carry words like seeds, planting them in every conversation. You notice it's not just nouns. Your syntax, blunt, direct, creeps into local speech. Anglo-Saxons start dropping flowery phrases for your clipped style, like they're mimicking your axe swings. Place names shift, too. By and Thorpe, Norse for village, speckle England's map. Grimsby, Scunthorpe. You chuckle at the thought of your grumpy Uncle Grimorosur naming a town. A joke bubbles up. Why'd the Viking name so many places? He got tired of saying, that spot over there. The trader glares, but you're already on to the next deal. It's not one way. You pick up local words, Saxon, bread, Gaelic, whiskey, and your Norse gets a new twang. But your influence runs deeper. Your runes, carved on stones or sticks, inspire locals to write more, even if they stick to Latin. Your oral sagas, with their punchy kennings like Whale Road for sea, spark poets to rethink their craft. You're not just talking, you're teaching Europe to tell stories your way. As you leave the market, a kid shouts, "Skål," to his friend. Your toast, now theirs. Your words are roots, sinking into Europe's tongue. They'll grow for centuries, long after your ships rot. You're not just leaving footprints, you're leaving echoes. You're striding through a bustling hall in Dublin, the clink of mead horns mingling with the scent of roasted boar. A Norse chieftain, now styling himself a king, holds court, his throne a mix of Viking carvings and Irish gold. You're not just a settler or wordsmith now. You're a witness to power, watching your people climb from raiders to rulers. Across Europe, Vikings are seizing thrones, shaping kingdoms, and bending politics to their will, leaving a legacy of crowns as sharp as their axes. By the 10th century, Norse political influence was undeniable, a fact etched in chronicles. In England, your kin rule the Danelaw, with leaders like Guthrum challenging Anglo-Saxon kings. In Normandy, Rollo's descendants morph from Viking warlords into dukes, their bloodline birthing William the Conqueror by 1066. In Russia, your Rurikid kin found a dynasty in Novgorod, laying roots for Slavic empires. You're not just fighting for loot anymore. You're forging realms, blending Norse ambition with local power structures. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Viking kings adopted Christian names to charm locals, like Olaf becoming Anlaf. You snicker, imagining a bearded warlord grumbling through a baptism just to seal a treaty. It's pragmatic, but it shows your people's knack for playing the long game. Historians still argue whether your political rise was conquest or cunning. Did you seize power by force, or did you slip into thrones through marriages and deals? Either way, you're in Dublin's hall, watching this chieftain, let's call him Sigtryg, work the room. He's Norse, but his wife's Irish. His coins bear Celtic knots, and his guards mix Viking axes with local spears. Your people don't just rule, they adapt, weaving their laws into local customs like thread through cloth. You see it elsewhere. In York, Norse kings issue coins stamped with Thor's hammer alongside Christian crosses, hedging bets with the gods. In Kiev, your Rurikid cousins enforce Norse-style assemblies but honor Slavic traditions. It's a balancing act, and you're impressed. A joke floats up. Why'd the Viking become king? Easier to tax the loot than steal it. You smirk, but Sigtryg's no fool. His rule brings stability, trade, and alliances. Your impact's not just in crowns. You reshape governance. Norse thing assemblies, where free men vote on laws, inspire locals to rethink their rigid hierarchies. In England, your Danelaw's legal codes, fines over feuds, temper Anglo-Saxon justice. Even your enemies, like Alfred's Wessex, copy your military reforms to fight you better. You're not just ruling, you're teaching Europe how to govern. As Sigtryg seals a pact with a rival, you catch the glint in his eye. Viking ambition, tempered by strategy. Your people aren't just kings. They're architects of power, building dynasties that'll echo beyond your time. The hall's fire burns low, but your influence is blazing. You're sprawled by a crackling fire in a Norse hall, the air thick with mead and murmurs, as a skald weaves a tale of gods and giants. His voice rises and falls, painting Thor's hammer, clashing with Jormungandr's coils, and the crowd, Norse and local alike, leans in, spellbound. You're not just a kingmaker or warrior now. You're a keeper of stories, your Viking sagas, spinning myths that grip Europe's imagination. These tales aren't just entertainment, they're a cultural tide, shaping how people dream and remember. By the 10th century, Norse storytelling was a historical force, preserved in later Icelandic sagas. Your oral epics, passed down by skalds, spread from Scandinavian hearths to English courts and Irish ports. In places like York or Dublin, your tales of Odin's cunning or Freya's beauty blend with local legends, inspiring bards to sing of heroes in a Norse style. These sagas, with their stark prose and vivid kennings, like battle sweat for blood, give Europe a new way to tell its own stories, raw and unpolished. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some skalds were so revered they could insult kings and live. You grin, picturing a poet roasting a chieftain's bad beard mid-feast, dodging a thrown cup but earning laughs. It's bold, proof your stories carry power as sharp as any sword. Historians still argue whether your sagas spread by cultural prestige or settlement. Did locals adopt them to curry favor with Norse rulers, or did the tales' sheer grit win hearts? Either way, you're in this hall, watching a Saxon guest try to mimic the skald's rhythm, fumbling but hooked. Your stories travel with settlers, traders, even captives, taking root wherever your longships dock. They're not just Norse, they're universal, tapping something primal. You notice the skald's tricks. Short, punchy lines, vivid as a storm. He calls the sea a whale path, and you see it, glittering, endless. Locals start using these phrases, their own tales growing sharper, more Norse. In England, Beowulf's epic, though Christian, echoes your saga style. Gruff heroes, monster slaying, fate's cold grip. You wonder if your skalds nudged its poet. A joke slips out. Why'd the skald tell such long tales? To bore the ghosts to death. The crowd chuckles, but the story's hold is no joke. Your myths do more than entertain. They carry your gods, Thor, Odin, into local minds, even as Christianity spreads. In Normandy, a farmer carves a rune for luck, half praying to Christ. Your tales keep pagan sparks alive, subtle but stubborn. They also inspire art. Norse knotwork creeps into Irish manuscripts, saga motifs into Anglo-Saxon carvings. You're not just telling stories, you're rewriting Europe's aesthetic. As the skald finishes, the hall roars. His tale of Ragnarok, world's end in fire and ice, lingers like smoke. Your sagas aren't just words, they're seeds, sprouting in minds far beyond your fjords. Europe's learning to dream in Norse, and that's a legacy no sword can cut. You're standing on a windswept cliff in Denmark, the sea churning below as a longship's sail fades into the mist. The years creeping past 1000 CE, and the Viking Age, that wild storm of Norse ambition, is quieting. You're not raiding or ruling now. You're watching your people's influence ebb, their legacy settling into Europe's bones like frost on a winter morning. The Viking tide is receding, but the marks it left are deep, and you're here to trace them as the twilight falls. By the 11th century, the Viking Age's decline was a historical shift. Christianity's spread is a big reason. Your pagan gods, once roared in battle, are now whispered in secret. In 995, Norway's king Olaf Tryggvason pushes baptism hard. Denmark and Sweden follow. You see Norse chieftains swap Thor's hammer for crosses, not always by choice. Kingdoms like England and Francia grow stronger, building navies to counter your longships. Your raids, once unstoppable, now meet walled towns and organized armies. The world's catching up. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Vikings became mercenaries, guarding Byzantine emperors, with axes still etched with runes. You smirk, imagining a grizzled raider in silk, grumbling about Constantinople's heat. It's a sign of change. Your people are adapting, not dominating. Historians still argue whether your decline was external pressure or internal shift. Did stronger kingdoms choke your raids, or did your own assimilation, marrying locals, adopting their ways, dilute the Viking spark? Either way, you're on this cliff, feeling the era's end. Your settlements, like Dublin and York, still thrive, but they're less Norse now, more a blend. Your language lingers in words like berserk, your sagas in local tales, but the raw edge is softening. You wander a nearby village, its longhouses replaced by stone churches. A kid carves a toy boat, dragon-headed like your old ships. Your influence isn't gone. It's woven into Europe's fabric. Normandy's dukes, descended from your kin, England's throne. Russia's Rurikids still rule in Kiev. Your trade routes, ship designs, even your democratic things have reshaped how Europe trades, sails, governs. A joke rises. Why'd the Viking quit raiding? Too many parking tickets for his longship. You chuckle, but the truth's heavier. Your world's changed. Your legacy's not in gold or blood, but in ideas. The Norse spirit, bold, restless, lives in Europe's drive to explore, from crusades to later voyages. You've left maps redrawn, tongues enriched, stories immortal. As the wind bites, you feel proud but wistful. The Viking Age is fading, but its echoes will ring for centuries. Now, let's slow down. Let the fire's glow fade. You're back on that cliff. The sea's murmur soft as a lullaby. The longship's gone, swallowed by the horizon, but its wake ripples still, in words, in bloodlines, in the courage to sail beyond the known. You breathe deep, the salt air cool, grounding. Your journey's done, not with a clash, but a whisper, like snow settling on a fjord. Europe carries your mark, subtle but sure, and that's enough. Let the waves sing you to sleep, their rhythm steady, endless. Close your eyes, feel the world soften, and drift into the quiet. Sweet dreams.